and I'm real excited for today's episode. Our guests are going to get some amazing discovery here. Chris Emick from Go Bucket Yourself has a podcast, has a website. His wife wrote a book. Just amazing conversation we had. I'm really excited about diving into it for this show.
Yeah, and I particularly loved, we talk about having fun, getting outside, doing stuff, doing things to promote our mental health and just to get out there and do the things that we're passionate about. But there is a very real consequence to not doing those things, to not being self-aware, to not understanding who you are, to not getting outside and really taking care of these things. And it's prevalent, right? It's these rates of anxiety, on the far side that's becoming more common, the suicide, this loneliness, like all these true impacts, man. So I love today's episode because it really helps us to not only put practical things in place to combat some of these situations, but man, it's just a great conversation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things to be excited about, to be positive about, to be fired up about. And this episode covers a lot of that. So super pumped.
And we challenge conventional wisdom just a bit in this. So go listen.
Go listen.
You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart. And we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
All right, Chris. So David and I recently had some feedback from a few friends of ours that listened to the podcast.
No. Don't change it up.
Oh,
one person.
Oh, there's been others. There's been others like a couple guys in the Storehouse Mastermind. Like they say it all the time. So, Chris, today we're going to try to make fun of David as much as possible because
nice.
Because our listeners say that he picks on me a lot, and then I never come back with other jokes on him. So let's focus on making fun of David today. Is that cool?
All right.
You
Any
should.
opportunity? Okay, cool.
Yeah, Chris. And I think you should. And really what our listeners concerned, they say our show is very positive and we're very, try to be uplifting, try to bring a very good message that builds people up. But they're like, but you're always like tearing you down. And my response is but then they say, most typically they say, but it's hilarious. Two, I'm like, dude, what do you expect? Right? Like, it's just such, if the bullseye is this big, then just hit it.
Right? It thinks
too
it's
easy.
an easy target. Yeah. But,
too easy. Okay.
Or
we could deflect making fun of me. Maybe that might be another alternative.
No, I welcome it. Okay. I want Stu to work on his, I want him to work on his game. Cause I feel like, that big brother.
Yeah, I'm not
that big brother that like people make fun of him and I got to step in and it just gets awkward. And I'm like, dude, come on, you can do it.
You can do it. You can be funny too. You can make fun of me. Yeah, I'm just not normally quick on my toes like he is. But anyways, hey, this is Filling the Storehouse podcast, Chris. We're excited to have you on. We got connected not too long ago from a mutual friend of ours, Stephen Heptig. Stephen is a good friend of ours and a third co-founder of the Storehouse Mastermind with us. And it's an awesome dude. And we all had a great conversation. You live here locally in Colorado. So we like you already.
Yeah.
And you got a cool beard and you do fun stuff outdoors. So I'm excited about it, man. Let's get into it. So tell us a little bit a background about you and what you did, what you're doing, and kind of what the goal is for everything you're doing.
Yeah. So the quick version is my name's Chris. I'm 43. I've always been a Coloradan. I love Colorado. I don't live in the sexy parts, like way up in the mountains that everyone kind of thinks about. Every time someone finds me like on an airplane, I say I'm from Colorado. They're like, oh, I know Colorado's so great. You live in Denver? No. You live in Boulder? Oh, there's other places? I'm like, yeah, there actually are a couple other places than Denver and Boulder. But anyways, yeah, so I love Colorado. I love the outdoors. I'm a dad of two teenagers or quasi teenagers, 17 and 12. 12 feels like a teenager.
Yeah.
And then I've been married to my wife for coming up on 20 years, my wife, Deb. And so
nice, man.
Yeah. So I graduated from high school, left a farming background as a kid, grew up on a farm, knew that I did not want to be a farmer. The inconsistent income, being so reliant on the weather, all that kind of stuff. I thought I was going to be a big city guy, so I ran off to college to get a degree in computer science and engineering, and got that in Kansas City. I was riding high. Moved back to Colorado, to Denver, and I graduated in software engineering right at the time of the dot-com burst. So I moved to Denver, full of ego, full of bravado, like the world is my oyster. I'm going to make bank and everything. But yeah, I had about like a 9-month career in Denver, and then the layoffs just were going everywhere, and it was just nuts. Like here I am, this little kid from this tiny town in Colorado, and I'm working in this building with 1,000 other employees, and then one Monday 200 people aren't there. The next Monday 400 people aren't there. I'm like, I don't know to be scared or not. I'm just like, hey, I'm still here. I must be good. And then my number eventually came. It was tough in Denver.
It's just because you're the new guy and your salary was the lowest. So they're like, oh, we'll keep him alone. We get
that is exactly, yeah. Where my ego told me was I must be something special. It was more like, no, they're getting rid of the $150,000 guys so they can keep your $40,000 ass. So that was that. I retreated back to my small town. Thought I was just going to recover here and then go back to the city, but I never really did. I stayed in IT and technology. I just did it for like small companies around here. Really only had two major employers, so I stuck with those and kind of did the normal career path for the majority of it. But at 40, my wife and I had accumulated some rental. Some single family home rentals, and we have, with the idea in mind that they would eventually be enough to replace my income, or at least replace our expenses or cover our expenses and still allow us to live. And so at 40, I pulled the plug on normal day-to-day paycheck, 40-hour a week living, and now we live off of our rentals, which we manage quite a few of those, but it's not like some people manage rentals and they do everything. I'm not one of those guys. I set up new tenants, we screen the tenants, but I'm not out there fixing toilets or any of that kind of stuff. So by and large, I feel retired. But yeah, so that's probably a quick version of where I'm at now or where I've been.
Yeah, and you say retired, but I let's get into some of the things that you're doing, because I feel like what I hear is that you gave something up to gain passion points, right? That you know, because you're a guy that's about making an impact. You're doing some things. So let's talk about those things that you're not sitting around drinking coffee all day and beer and whatever you do, whatever people that are just retired and sit around all day do. I don't know, but that's not you, right? Tell us some of the things you're doing.
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to do, like, I wasn't running from something. Some people say like, you can, when you leave a job or when you can retire or quit something, sometimes they say, what are you running towards? Not what are you running from? Because if you're running from something, there's a decent chance when you get there, that thing will still be there. It'll just look a little bit different than what you did. So what I was running towards was the freedom of time to explore and do some cool outdoor shit with my family and myself. I like doing stuff outside alone. I love doing stuff with my family and my kids. And I just thought, what an opportunity to have that much time. So that was kind of the overarching thing. Like, what would life look like if on a Tuesday I could, take my daughters, who were both homeschooled at the time, take my daughters on a hike, or if we could travel to Ecuador and stay there for a month. Or just various things like that I didn't feel the freedom by having the normal W-2 40-hour a week job, which gave me 3 weeks of vacation a year. But it was still, even though that was good, I mean, I felt privileged to have that. I just kind of wanted a little bit more, a little bit different. So yeah, I knew what I wanted to do in that free time, and I also knew I couldn't just go on hikes. Like, someone's not going to sit on the beach probably and drink Mai Tais. Like, that's going to get old after a couple months probably, or you're going to, anyways, your health's going to turn anyways. But I knew I couldn't just like go hiking all the time with my kids or go climb the next mountain or do some of the outdoorsy stuff that I like to do. So the impact piece has started to creep up into my life, where I feel more of a call now to leave something behind, not necessarily in an ego way, because I have and still do have a decent amount of work to do on my ego, but it's starting to turn more into like being more of service to other people, where it's like I love X, Y, and Z skills. Like those are the things that I have. Those are my gifts. I can serve the world with those gifts. How can I do it in a way that feels good? And so like my wife, when she left working, she left about 5 years before me. She just immediately had to fill all that space in because she's like, oh, I should join this group and I should join this volunteer board and I should do that. And I kind of learned from her lessons, and I'm just not as nice of a person as her. So I knew I didn't want to just go do stuff because that's what quote unquote good people do. I had to do something that was in alignment with my passion, with my values. And so that's when we started doing a podcast called Go Bucket Yourself. But the eventual path we're heading down is I love nature. I love connecting people with me, selfishly. I love connecting people with each other, and I love to grow. So connection, adventure, growth, those are like my core values. And I want to just bring that to as many people as I can. And I've done a few like little trips here and there because I like planning. I've done a few little trips and things like that. And I've been blown away by there's just maybe not a lack, but yeah, a lack. There's just there's a need for this kind of stuff. And so that's not me with hubris and ego saying like, oh, I'm truly needed. I just feel like, oh, I have this beautiful duty and obligation and privilege to do that. And it feels like something I want to do. So it feels like the path that I want to walk.
Yeah. And before Stu asks this question, I want to kind of change, I guess, offer a different perspective on your egotistical self. I think it's a great place to be, and it's very liberating to recognize that we all have something to offer. Because I think the opposite is more prevalent, where people are like, I'm not going to do X, Y, Z because I'm just like, why me? I'm not special. Why me? And I think that there's a very healthy level of ego and recognition and self-awareness to realize, man, I have something to offer. And not only do I have something to offer, but I believe that so strongly that I'm going to go now take action.
Yeah.
And what I think is beautiful is you've done that. And regardless of it, maybe there's some ego stuff, whatever, but we'll work through that. But one, you're willing to work through it. You're willing to acknowledge it. So that's like an amazing place to be. So it's not conceited, right? It's not hubris. It's a self-awareness of, I do have something to offer, but then to be able to take that step and create what you have acknowledged, and what is huge for Stu and I, is we recognize there's this huge gap in community and people connecting and really getting together, getting outside, playing, having fun, having deep, meaningful, vulnerable conversations, recognizing that and doing something about it. I just want to encourage you in your self-talk, like that's amazing, right? Like that is not selfish. And we joke all the time. We're very selfish about this mastermind because we get all this knowledge every single week from these 30 dudes that are amazing. So yeah, there's some selfishness there, but it's all for growth. And if you don't do what you're doing, then those people that you're serving in your way, right? You're not on a service board, but the way that you're serving people, getting them outside and connecting, is changing their lives. Yeah. Which is awesome. So I just want to encourage you in that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that sounds, I very much appreciate that. And I'm getting better about that. Like each year. So I've been quote unquote retired for 3 years, and I've done a lot of work in some of that free time. And that is like the first day one was imposter syndrome out the window. Like, who am I? Why me? Da, 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 da. So taking action, tiny little steps, getting more confidence, encouragement, and just seeing that, oh shit, there's a lot of people that either one, don't have this skill or don't have these things that I can now call a gift. And I'm kind of on this spiritual journey where it's like, yeah, I now am recognizing like, hey, I was put here for a purpose. So I can ignore these, but it'll probably show up as a midlife crisis in some fashion. I'll go cheat on my wife, or I'll go buy some car that I don't need or some shit like that if I ignore these for too long. So I'm trying to stay in tune with that, and it's getting
this
easier.
Is a much better alternative.
Yeah, way better.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, I wanted to hit on something you said about the lessons that your wife had when she left her full-time job, and then how you kind of took those lessons and did something a little bit different. Because David and I have seen a little bit of this as we transitioned out of our W-2 jobs and full-time entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
you can very quickly just schedule yourself like maxed out, and David and I had this idea that we were going to be, the best fathers we could possibly be and the best husbands. And we'd be taking our kids to school and volunteering and showing up to every event and, cooking every meal, like all these like grand ideas of not having a regular job. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on that and what you saw your wife go through and then how you changed that. I mean, did you just start saying no to everything or just didn't volunteer for anything, or like what did that look like?
Yeah, and it's interesting. So my wife, she is like we do Enneagram, we do some profile work. So we have a pretty decent we've used systems to kind of define, some of our tendencies and things like that. So my wife is like people pleaser to the T. So her tendency is definitely to say yes to everything. I'm not quite that bad. So she said yes to everything, including a lot of shit that I was shoveling on her. Like, I was like, oh, without a job, I bet you can do this and this and this. Some of it was selfish. Some of it was thinking I was helping her. Like, oh, I bet she's going to get bored, so I need to help her stay busy and all of that. So the lessons learned there were she said yes to a lot of stuff. She, as a people pleaser that she was, she didn't really have her own voice. Like she didn't know what she wanted. She didn't know her core values. Like when we were planning family trips, it was always Chris's ideas. Like these were always like, Chris wants to climb this mountain. Let's go to this place. Chris wants to see this thing. So she never really had that inner voice or that inner guidance, which I'm like the type of guy that like I'm always thinking about the future. Like 3 years, 7 years, 10 years down the road, I'm always trying to line up those dominoes so that they fall where I want them. But yeah, so she started to develop her voice. She started to do, and this wasn't just like, oh, she took a week. This has been years in the making of her realizing why she is such a people pleaser, working through some of those tendencies that aren't serving her, developing the skills to do boundaries. I was almost on the flip side of that equation. I have the ability to set strong boundaries. I have the ability to speak up and say, this is what we're doing. I needed to soften some of that stuff. So that's been some of my work is not necessarily saying yes to more things. I did say yes to more things, but also just to kind of think of more than just myself and still staying in alignment with those values. So I'm not turning into a martyr, but also not just like, how do I make Chris's net worth go up? How do I make Chris's happiness meter go up? How do I make Chris's this and that? And so I did. Like I've been acting like a kid, just experimenting and playing around with all sorts of stuff. And so I think that's, sorry, I've talked so long, I've lost myself in where I was. But what was the other part of that question, or was that?
No, I mean, that's it, man.
Okay.
Just the lessons learned behind that, I think are super valuable, because we can get into this stage where the entire goal is to get to fire, right, to retire early, and then have all this passive income created, there's this path that people go on, and then you get there and you're like, all right, now what? And then you start finding stuff to fill your calendar. It's not the stuff that's truly meaningful. And I'm not going to say that like not taking my kids to school and going to all their events and all that isn't meaningful, because it absolutely is. And it's still, important to me and on my list of to-do items. But, we got to find our own passions and our own purpose beyond just saying yes to everybody else's, because if you don't fill your calendar up, someone else is going to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it was just an important thing for me to kind of hit on, because I heard that, and I mean, I learned that same lesson.
Yeah. And that's another part about that too. Like a lot of, so like where my wife people pleased because she faced some abandonment trauma at a younger age, I would say yes to things that weren't in alignment with my values just because I thought they would impress people, or they would, I would get acknowledgement and stand out. And so some of those things ended up being in alignment with my values. Like when I started climbing some big tough mountains and posted stuff on Facebook and Instagram, and people were like, "Oh my God, that's so crazy! Wow, look at you, look at you." I mean, there's definitely some ego, like ding, 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 like, "Oh, cool, I'm winning."
Dopamine.
Yeah.
Getting it.
But some of that actually was in alignment with my values. I just had to recognize the fact that, oh shit, am I climbing to try to impress someone, or am I climbing because the first reason I came out here is to like connect to God, to be alone with myself, to test myself and all of that. I don't need, or I shouldn't be driven by what's going to get the most likes and the most acknowledgement stuff. So,
oh, that's good, man. I love it.
There's so much there. And, one of the things I want to go back to is I love how you and your wife kind of went on this journey together too, right? There is I think too many of us survive our relationships and we get to a point where, we're very effective roommates or, co-parenting, cohorts or whatever it is. And so I love how, and you guys started opposite, which is, pretty normal. I think that, in a marriage, my marriage is a bit different, I think, because my wife and I are very similar, and that comes with its own set of challenges when you're two somewhat aggressive and assertive individuals. But I love how, as you guys work through it, saying no enables you to say yes to a lot of things too, right? It's critical. And so her learning that, and then you kind of taking your no's and figuring out where the yeses are, I think that's a level of self-awareness, and then doing that as a couple, that's beautiful. But and so I not only encourage you but applaud you for going through that, because that's one of the things that we're trying to do, in our marriages, right? Be very intentional, especially after these huge transition to getting out of the military and the roles and all these things change. But I'm curious, tell me about some of the, this externally focused stuff, like the go bucket yourself, and some of the different, the ideas behind that and why. And I'm kind of curious, because we talked about it before we hit record, but I'm curious if you're seeing the people that you're connecting and helping, if there's a high level of, we were talking about anxiety with our kids.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you're seeing that differently in, whether it's these trips, but in adults and some of the impacts of that.
Yeah, I mean, I do. And I come at life probably with a different shade of glasses than some other people, because I live a pretty quiet life. Like, I live in a small town. I now don't have like a 40-hour work week. I've learned to kind of tame some of the digital addictions and problems that I had, 5-10 years ago and all of that. So I'm probably more susceptible to my radar going off when I see anxiety, or when I see people like, holy shit, can you put your phone down? Like, not for my sake, even just like, I think you are going to drive yourself nuts if you don't learn to go more than 20 seconds without some kind of attention, distraction or whatever. And so in many ways, I see that. Like, I see that, and I've seen what happens in nature when all of a sudden the Wi-Fi signal, the 4G signal drops, and it's like, I see the discomfort that comes in that first day of like, what the hell do I do? Like, what if something major is happening right now? Like, what if there's an earthquake in Thailand? I'm like, oh, well, what would you do about it anyways?
What would you do anyways?
Do you need to know exactly right now that there's a Thailand earthquake? That's not great, and all that. But so yeah, I see it across the spectrum. Again, maybe my antenna and radar is a little strong to pick up those blips out there, but I see it, and I've heard it now that I've done a few of these events, now that I've worked with guys, because I grew up on a farm. Like, outdoors was everything. Like, I wasn't necessarily hiking in the woods all the time or climbing mountains as a kid, but I was outdoors a lot. Like, we had, if you're not outdoors playing, you're outdoors working. So I would try to find something outside to play with as much as I could. And so I just have this natural, I guess, a little more risk tolerance to like, oops, I could hurt myself, or I don't know what this is going to be, but let's do it anyways. And I see in like I said, all of the generations, the generation below me, my peers, my the people the same age as me, and even the generation above, like my parents, my aunts, uncles, and all of that kind of stuff. I just see some of that where, yeah, there's this anxiety creep, and I don't think there's one thing to pin it down to, But I think it's just a culmination of maybe this Western civilization, this Western life, this trying to make everything extremely safe, extremely sanitized, extremely, predictable. Know exactly what your path is going to look like, even though you don't even know yourself yet. But you pick a career, you strap yourself to student loan debt, even though you have no clue if this is the field that is even going to serve you or line up with your purpose and all of that. And so I see a lot of that. And I could be like some people and just like bitch about it, like go to coffee with my buddies and be like, isn't this horrible? Like, we're teacup generation. Everyone's so fragile and da 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 da. I'm like, or I could do something about it. It's like, okay, I could try to get some kids together or tell some dads that I know, like, hey, I can take your kids out backpacking if you want to. I'm not gonna throw them in the river and make them, swim for their lives, but I can show them how to build a fire.
But that'd be a cool exercise, though.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, that would really be,
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of my childhood. It wasn't like,
yeah,
is he going to for sure survive this? It's like, he's probably going to make it out of this. So let's try it.
Well, dude, and it's crazy. I listened to this, we're in November, today, election day.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll tell you, it's been this year, and I've not paid attention to, I don't watch TV. I don't, whatever. But my son's a Ravens fan. So they played Monday Night Football. So we watched a little bit, and dude, these commercials are crazy. Like the political commercials, literally when I hear them, and I tell my kids, I you can't fast forward them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm like, guys, what you're listening to is literally crazy, but it's so negative. And one of the ones that just keeps sticking in my mind is this lady comes on and she says, would you ever let your kids play outside by themselves? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, no, of course not. You would not, because crime is up and killing's up and blah, 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 all these things. And I'm like, wow, these are the, to me, they're very obvious. You talk about a radar. To me, it's very obvious because I'm very sensitive to this level of anxiety and people, killing themselves in the service. And so it's something we're trying to do something about. But it's so prevalent and it's ubiquitous through all mediums of sorry, Stu, ubiquitous is kind of
yeah I got it. Yeah, I know that word,
but it's a I love the fact you're doing something about it, and that's why I asked if you're seeing it, because in every facet of my life, whether it was in the service or now, like some of the causes that Stu and I are involved with, man, it is like the dark side of it. And when I see kids with anxiety, the dark side of it is I've seen what it culminates in when they leave the house and they go to like in the service, man, the military. I had in one tour, I had 3 sailors commit suicide, and all young, right?
Oh,
They're
my
all
gosh.
young. In one tour, my last tour. And I'm just like, man, the world is getting, these people are feeling so much despair.
Yeah.
And it's to your point, the practical things that we can do. What are those things to kind of to really make, give money, great, raise awareness, great. Now, what can we do? And so, and I'm curious, let's talk about the bright side of that. I imagine you also see a shift at some point. Like they're like, they're jonesing, they're scratching, because they're not getting their crack hit on their cell phone. But at some point, is there a shift? Is there something that we should be celebrating here?
Yeah, I honestly think so. Like I'm new to this. Like I've still got the training wheels on. So it's not like I have, decades of experience of doing this kind of work and seeing these kinds of transitions. But the few transitions or the few opportunities I have had, there is definitely a shift. Like there's definitely this feeling of like, oh, I just did this hard thing. I can do, I got this. Like, I'm not going to maybe stress out as much about like this test, or I'm not going to stress out about this, whether I should take job A or job B, or I'm not going to stress so much about, I don't know, just all the different little things that either subconsciously or consciously work into this place of where we just feel overwhelmed. We feel anxious. We feel like everything's such a critical decision. And then when you get out into nature and you just see things slowing down, you just see things like we just got back from Costa Rica and we had this amazing guide that guided us through the jungle. And we're watching this sloth, and my daughter, my 11-year-old or 12-year-old, she knows, like, animals are her love language. But so she knows all the intricacies of the sloth and how they do all this kind of stuff. And the guide's like, the sloth isn't lazy. Like if he wanted to move faster, he would move faster, but that's as much as he can do. So I'm just, I guess, using that as kind of like this analogy or metaphor. Like nature can be slow. Nature, like it takes decades to grow a tree and all that kind of stuff. And then I think when you just get out there and you get around that slower pace of life, when you get around giant mountains, and all of a sudden, like this was the big thing for me. Like when I love God, I love JC. We're down, but in the walls of a church, I was not like ever brought to my knees. Like, oh wow, I really feel this. In the walls of a mountain, I feel it. Like I feel like I am this tiny part of this larger thing, and I feel the majesty and the beauty and the serenity and the peace that comes from those types of situations. So again, I just thought maybe there's some wiring in me that's unique. But as I've taken people out to that, especially if they've never been around that before, there is definitely that tick. And I would love to come back in 5-10 years because I'll probably have a whole, portfolio of like, wow, I can give you a story about Joe or a Jim or Sally, and the transition they made. But I'm reading a lot. I'm and a lot of what I'm reading is people that are out there kind of doing what I'm doing right, or trying to do right now. And yeah, there's a need for it. There's a shift that happens. It just feels like it's part of our human evolution or de-evolution to find that peace again, or that community, that connectedness to both other humans around you, but this connectedness to something bigger than yourself that makes us feel like. That's what I see with my 17-year-old right now. Like she's stressed out, starting in her junior year, just started getting hammered with, I think, like you got to do your SATs, you got to get the right score, you got to do the right scholarships, you got to do the right thing, you got to go to college. And we'd talked about her doing a gap year, and she was just in love with the idea 8th grade into freshman year, but it's almost been like, pulled from her. And that's not because I've shut up. Like I'm still like promoting the idea of like, if you don't know what you want to do, try to explore and try to minimize that. Just because your counselor or your 6 friends all think like they got to go straight to college, they got to go straight to this. Don't feel their pressure. Don't feel that their path, which they're probably not even on their own path yet, but they're feeling the pull of just following what everyone else does. Don't feel that that's you. And when I think you start to do that, when you start to walk someone else's path, life's just, whether you're addicted to your phone or not, life just feels anxious because it's like there's this unease, this dis-ease within you, because you're not walking your own path. And I think it shows up in a lot of ways, and a lot of different of the great religions, a lot of mysticism, all kind of echoes that message. So I kind of bounced around there a little bit, but yeah, I've seen the shift. And I'm hoping to see more of it because I think it'll be great.
Yeah, dude, I 100% agree, man. And we're fairly new into this journey as well as starting the Storehouse Mastermind, and we've done one retreat so far, and we saw the same thing, man. Like we did it here in Colorado. 14 men came and stayed in an Airbnb, and we went on this amazing, beautiful hike up a mountain along a river. To a beautiful mountain lake. We all jumped in. It was freezing. Yeah. And like it was just an experience that these men had. And some of the guys were just like, wow,
yeah,
this is amazing. And it's just, and David and I try to do it as much as we possibly can to get outside. I mean, we try to make Thursdays our day where we go hiking or we go mountain biking or we go fly fishing, and winter's coming soon. We're going to go snowboarding. Nice. And it's just this, this place that we go where the conversations that we have, like, everybody looks at it like it's just a play day, which it kind of is. But at the same time, like we're having amazing conversations and strategizing. Well,
that's where some of the best ideas come, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
That's where the mastermind came from. It was a hike. It was a number of hikes. It was a play day, and then just shout out, today is the 8th, tomorrow's the 9th, Stuart's birthday, and we're gonna go mountain biking. We're gonna go.
I'm turning 43, Chris.
All right,
43. Yeah, we're going to go out mountain biking, and it's going to be an amazing day. And then grab a beer at a brewery after, and just hang out. But I guarantee you, the conversations are going to be. It's going to be a great conversation, right? And the ideas, we're already talking about the next retreat. And, I'll tell you one thing as you're talking, Chris, the thing that popped in my head is conventional wisdom is not always wise.
Yeah.
And the more that I look at, like, you look at kids, you look at the FIRE movement.
Yeah.
You look at the things that the conventional wisdom financially, a lot of that stuff is not really sound financial advice, and it's not what the rich do. It's not what the wealthy do. The conventional wisdom, I'll just put your money, 401k, this, that, the other, and these conventional, wisdom tools are not always the best way. Usually they're not. But then, when you approach relationships and the way we do things, a lot of times the conventional wisdom is, a counselor saying, I don't take a gap year. That gap year may be the most amazing experience and the most self-aware opportunity. Like, as you said it, I'm like, dude, I'm going to promote this for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it means they lose an athletic scholarship, then I go to college because I'm not paying for you. But I mean, to promote the idea of go explore and do something different.
Yeah.
Because most people were looking at conventional wisdom and it's just not working today.
Yeah.
It's not, with the anxiety and the loneliness and all the garbage.
Well, and the
conventional wisdom.
The conventional wisdom always has to do with money, right?
Yep.
Like, you need to go to college to go into debt
Mm-hmm.
to pay this loan, so some banker can make a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's normally about money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of like, I think a lot of our school system was built on this, and there's the conspiracy side of me that could go down one path, but I won't go there. But just like, 50, 60 years ago, the model was we need people that can work in factories and follow rules. So it's like our school system was built off the fact of sit in your desk, listen to the one person, the one expert in the room, and absorb what they have to say. Don't speak up. Don't get unruly. Little 8-year-old son, little 8-year-old kid boy that wants to, like, he's like, I can't sit this long. That's bad. We need to put him on Ritalin type of thing. Like, it's all conditioned. And again, I'm not even saying there's a conspiracy to this, but that's just the conventional wisdom that we've been conditioned in, because at one time we needed good factory workers to go out and build us, steel and shovel coal and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe that served a purpose, but a lot of our models in conventional wisdom are based off of that. And there's not a whole lot of at least what I'm seeing, a whole lot of like, who are you? What are your gifts? Explore whether that's in the big sense of like go backpack across Europe, or explore your own curiosities. What do you love to do? What takes you into that flow state? What takes you into what is flow state? That kind of stuff. Like, what aligns with you? Because if you tap into that, you can find ways to make money. Like, that's my daughter. She's an artist right now. And I can just, this is me kind of speculating a little bit, but I can see she sees two paths. There's the poor artist, that just has to go live in an apartment with 60 other people so that someday maybe she can get her shit in a gallery. And then there's, or she just abandons that dream altogether so that she can go make money and then she'll maybe draw once a weekend or something like that. I'm like, I've done a lot of backpacking. I've done a lot of exploring. In a month of backpacking, I will talk to 20 artists that are doing art 20 different ways, and some are making bank and some aren't. And it's just like, when you open your horizon, you open your world, especially living in a small town like we do, when you open up to other people and other possibilities and explore that creativity, rather than just saying like, are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be a nurse? Are you going to be a doctor or a lawyer? It's like, oh, you don't want to be in those 4 paths? Well, tough shit, pick one and go down it anyways. It's like, no, there's so much more you can do. And so, yeah.
That's good, man. Hey, let's talk. I want to talk about your podcast. You have a podcast and a website called Go Bucket Yourself. We've mentioned it a few times, but tell us about that. What's the mission behind it? What's your the purpose and what's it all about?
Yeah. So the Go Bucket Yourself is kind of a play on like go, taking action, bucket, like a bucket list, and yourself, like empowering you to go do it, not following along Chris's Instagram journey and be like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. And like, fuck no, go do your own thing, find your own path and go do it. And so that's what our podcast, Go Bucket Yourself, is a little bit about that. It's a little bit of like, it's not just like, oh, we're going to have Joe on and he's going to talk about bungee jumping off of, big things. It's a little bit about like self-discovery, self-growth. Authenticity is huge to me. Like if there's one word to describe like what I want to do for myself and bring to the world, it's authenticity, like for people to find their authentic selves. And so we try to tease that out through stories that kind of center around a theme, like this this year's was simplicity. And a lot of that simplicity theme was to try to get people to feel either a call to action or empowered, or feel the maybe normalness of like right now there's a lot of people on level 10 anxiety, and it's not because you're not taking the right drug. You're possibly doing something in your day-to-day life that's leading to that. So we like to have those kind of interviews. Our last interview was with a gal named, and she's the stress nanny. And I mean, this is very apropos because her whole job, her whole business centers around working with achieving or high achieving kids that either in athletics or academics that are like anxious, stressed out, and she's trying to bring some stillness to them, bring some peace to them, to teach these skills that I'm just now, in my 30s and 40s, learning about meditation and breathing and going out into nature and all that kind of stuff. Teach that stuff at a young age to maybe combat that effect. So that's what the podcast. That's something we're actively doing today, and what we all will also be doing is building retreats and events to try and get people together. So right now I'm working with a couple other folks, other, small businesses, to kind of take the ideas that I already have in my head and help someone that's already got an established audience while we kind of build our own audience ourselves, so that we can do things with or without. That was one of the things that I missed the most about leaving my job, was the collaboration. Like I just love collaborating. And while my wife and I running a podcast in this new business and our real estate business is nice, we get along pretty good. We're pretty good about balancing each other. There's still some elements that that is, I guess, probably too big of an ask to put on our relationship to also be like collaborative people, like I used to be with my team of network engineers and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we're. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. And you're collaborating with some pretty cool organizations. I mean, you said they're just kind of small businesses, but most of our listeners would probably know who these organizations are. You're working with Camp Fi to do retreats. You're working with Front Row Dads, which is a really cool organization. And all those organizations have an amazing purpose, right? And so like you're working with those guys. And I'm excited to see what's coming with that. So super cool, man.
Thanks. I'm excited too.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is your wife wrote a book, and I haven't read it, but I just saw it, and I'm gonna go read it. I'm really excited to because the topic itself looks really really.
I love the title, dude. The title's like a grabber. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So the other side of perfect. So it's a very interesting story. So the quick version of some background to this. So when we were approaching 30, so a little over 10 years ago, we were on the normal path, not really following our dreams necessarily, just kind of doing what everyone else was doing, maybe stick out a little bit here and there, but overall following the same exact path, career path, the same exact, like, put our kids in everything type of deal. And then my wife's health started to shift. We went and climbed this 14er, and, you're usually sore a couple days afterwards from, hiking that long for that extended period of time. But it was about a month later, and she's like, man, I still feel like I just climbed that mountain yesterday. I'm like, oh, what? And so I was like, oh, you must have just not been in shape. So then that led to about a year, 2 years of tests and diagnosis through the medical system. At that time, we were very bought into like, oh, something's not right, go to the doctor. Oh, they say take 3 pills, take 3 pills. If something, and then eventually, though, I'm a little bit of a cynic skeptic where I'm like, I think we could do other things besides just taking these pills. Like maybe let's change our diet. Let's try to change some of our routines. So she started making some of those changes, either with my input or not, and all of that. So the biggest change, though, was basically in the project of writing this book, was looking at her past, seeing why she had developed some of these people-pleasing tendencies, which kind of led to her discovery of, in her childhood, some abandonment issues, where parent one goes one way, parent two goes the other way, and she's kind of left like, well, you're with a friend this year, you're with a family member X this year. And so she learned to cope by making everyone happy around her, like by shutting off any voice in her head that said, this is what you should do or what you want to do, Debbie. Instead, listening to, how do I appease Chris? How do I appease my mother-in-law? How do I appease this person so that they never abandon me? Because basically, is for some people, this may sound weird. At the place I'm at now, it's like it's totally normal. But basically, this unease, this dis-ease that she experienced her whole life of basically never listening to the voice within her, or never even knowing that voice existed, and never dealing with that past trauma until she made that effort. Her body was going to keep attacking. It's several autoimmune diseases, but her body was going to keep attacking itself probably until it would have killed her, because several of her diagnoses were, it could be A, it could be B, and C was always death. And so that was a wake up call that got us out of thinking like, one, we're going to keep following the path that everyone else is following, and two, the bigger one, which was her starting to develop her own awareness of what her dreams are, what her desires are, what she wants to say yes to and what she wants to say no to. Because as I mentioned earlier, she could say yes to anything. And she would put on a face where she wasn't like a martyr. Like if she said, sure, I'll go take your grandmother 3 hours to a doctor appointment, she wouldn't be like a martyr of like, I guess I'll do it, no one else will do it type of thing. She was like, you would think that she really, really wanted to do it. And maybe she did, but there were times where she said yes and looked like a yes, but it really wasn't a yes. And until she developed that by working through some of that trauma, by writing this book, taking the big, brave step of actually putting it out there, knowing that her mom and her dad can and did read the book and read some of these stories of her past that they probably didn't know about. Like they didn't know that the impact and the work. And that's her point, wasn't to be like, be better parents, don't ever do this to your kids. Just like, hey, trauma's real. Trauma may look in some kids like this way, and it may look some in other ways like someone that on the surface probably looks like they're living a good life, but meanwhile their body's killing itself. So yeah, The Other Side of Perfect, that's the book. She wrote it a couple of years ago. It's out there and available. The audiobook's out there and available. But yeah, that's her story as a people pleaser that turned into chronic illness, that turned into dealing with her trauma. And now on the surface, and she's got a pretty solid level of awareness right now. We're living a great life. Her health is largely in control. Like there's a few things that happen every once in a while but she knows how to take care of those. But yeah, she has way more good days than she has bad, which was not the story 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's incredible. I look forward to reading it. That's
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like an amazing story, and it's just that the power of the mind and when we deny ourselves, man, that's crazy. Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Look forward to reading it. And for anybody, they can, obviously you guys have a ton of resources, but you go to gobucketyourself.com and you can access your podcast, you can access the book. There's all kinds of good stuff there. So
yeah.
Awesome, man. Dude, so what's up? What's we've been talking kind of in generalities, and I'm gonna put you on the spot and hold you accountable to it. When's this next in-person thing? What are you looking at? What's up?
Yeah, so the next one will probably be in March, April. So like that's the one that's also the least developed, which is not that's an advisable way to do it. Like the one that's the farthest out is the one I have most cemented and concreted.
That's awesome.
But one of my tendencies to be a little airy and flighty.
It's easier that way.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I want to take some folks. I'm still debating on whether it's like a couples retreat. I'm still debating on whether it's just a guys type retreat. I want to take some folks to the Grand Canyon. I just finished this book called The Comfort Crisis, and talk about a great book that really hones in on why sometimes adding so much comfort in our lives leads to the anxiety and the teen suicide rates that we see today that have never been like this before. But I want to create an opportunity. This one will probably be pretty low key. Like I'm not going to try to, bring in guest speakers and all that kind of stuff. Like, let's go there. Let's push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. Let's do some fun stuff to celebrate the fact that we went outside of our comfort zone and did this hard thing. And let's have some prompts and reflections and some journaling time to take what can we take from that experience. So I want to do that Grand Canyon, March, April of 2023. Then the next big ones are with in partnership with Camp FI. The Colorado one in July, I'll be doing, or my wife and I'll be doing a 3-day 3-day add-on to that, where we're going to do some river rafting, we're going to do some hiking, and then probably do a little pampering type stuff at the very, very end. And then with Front Row Dads, my buddy and I are coming up with a pretty solid plan. Like I said, this is the one we've got most developed, and that's going to be in Colorado in July. So those are kind of the meat and potatoes. We just did some family travel in Costa Rica. Then my uncle passed, and I did the eulogy and stuff. So kind of had slight distractions these last couple of weeks off of that. But now that's the mode I'm heading in. Besides holidays coming up, but that's the mode I'm going to be playing with over the next couple of weeks. So excited to. My problem isn't usually not enough ideas. It's like, okay, distill, simplify.
We feel you on that one, dude.
Yeah, okay,
we feel you on that one.
Totally, man. Yeah, David likes to live up in like the clouds, like 50,000 feet. Do
you bring him down?
Yeah, he has all these grandiose ideas, and I try to reel him in.
That's good. Yeah, that's critical. I mean, that's very much a critical skill. And I used to think actually I was the guy. Like when I led my team, I thought I was the more grounding, operational, like, okay, we don't need more ideas. We just need to take action. But the more I'm finding out, it's like, oh, I can fly around in the clouds too. Yeah. I just had to develop that skill of bringing people down, but I'm probably better up in the clouds. I just need a buddy.
Yeah. to help. Actually, Steven, our mutual connection, the third part of the mastermind, he's the one that really brings us both down. Like, all right,
I can see that.
We got to do this today. Like,
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
that's good to have someone like that on your team.
It's good, man. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on. I'm looking forward to having more of them. And maybe you can help us with some of the event planning for the mastermind. And so how do people get in touch with you? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, I'd say, head to our website, Go Bucket Yourself. Check that out. You can hop on our newsletter, our mailing list there. But if they want to talk more directly, I'm on Instagram at Bucket Yourself. Just DM me. And if you got, outdoors stuff. I mean, I talk about real estate investing because that was the piece that got us to this. And so I still like to help people out in that realm. You're probably not going to that's not my, I'm not out there actively promoting that or launching courses or anything with that. There's some other amazing people doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, hit me up on Instagram at Bucket Yourself and or our website, and I'd love to connect.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you, guys and gals. Hey, reach out to Chris. We'll put all the connections and links in the show notes, and share this if you enjoyed this episode. Obviously connect with Chris, but tell people about this podcast, and tell people about Chris's podcast, because it is really, really good. They got some great guests, great topics. Hey, let's go all fill the storehouse.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Super stoked for what you got coming up. Just absolutely fired up for the impact you're going to continue to make for others, for couples, for men, for self-awareness, for the kids. Man, it's awesome. Huge impact. Love your mission, love your vision, and look forward to doing stuff in the future with you, man.
That'd be great.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What about you all? What's kind of next on the radar? Anything that stands out from the rest?
Yeah, no, we're super stoked about February is our next retreat.
Oh, cool.
Our in-person is February. We're going down to Arizona and going to do some, awesome stuff down there. And it's, it's interesting because, that conventional wisdom thing also hit me. And when a lot of guys get together, the conventional wisdoms that you do things like talk about women and that she must work out and all this kind of stuff. Well, one feedback that we got from one of the members that went was, he had said, man, this is the first time I've gotten with a group of dudes and that kind of conversation didn't happen, but it would just not work. It just wouldn't be, it would be so out of place because of the intentionality of what we were doing on that retreat. And we had a blast, right? It was an amazing time, but he was just like, I've never experienced a group of men coming together and not being surface level, not being conventional, right?
Yeah.
We were different and we didn't talk about the things and do the things that most people think is what you talk about and do on those things. So yeah, man, we're fired up for that. Our in-person stuff is something that we're super excited about developing out and in this mastermind. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
It's good stuff.
Well, like I said, go share this and have a great day.
Make it a great day, friends. Make it a great day. We'll see you, Chris. Thanks.
See you. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go climb a mountain. How about you?
I'm super fired up about getting to the mountains. I'm always fired up about getting to the mountains, man. Fishing, mountain biking, hiking with my boy. It's good stuff. Let's get out there. Helps the brain, helps the heart.
Yeah.
All goodness.
Yeah. I mean, this is stuff that we're trying to implement in Storehouse Mastermind, right? Like we talked about it on this podcast episode, where that first retreat we did up in the mountains in Colorado was amazing, man. Like some amazing breakthroughs, just great conversation, getting out in nature, getting closer to God. And we want to do more of it. We have our next one set in Arizona, and we're opening up our next house. We'd love for some high achieving men to join us on that. And we're still taking applications as this episode comes out. If you're interested in it, hey, let's go to storehouse310.com/mastermind and hit that big join now button.
Get it.
Go.
Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.